My neon sign says open. Who's looking me over? Looking me over. If I try enough, would you feel my missing piece? I can't understand why I misunderstand my own desire. If I carry on in what I know is wrong, the colors bleeding. You understand the heart of me, you know the deepest part of me. You got some kind of technical love. I carry all my flaws, you see, but you never run away from me. You got some kind of technical love. How will I know when a heart is golden? If all I seem to do is circle my mistakes. I never understood how I misunderstood. I can be desired. I can't comprehend being alone again. The colors bleeding. You understand the heart of me, you know the deepest part of me. You got some kind of technical love. I carry all my flaws, you see, but you never run away from me. You got some kind of technical love.
Hey, good morning. we're so used to doing this live that the one time we don't do it live, it seems to be harder for some reason.
How do we do?
This is fascinating. So if you didn't get the memo leading up to this morning, then we are not technically live. I know that above my head it says live, and we've been live throughout the entire pandemic every Sunday morning. But for this Sunday and then the following Sunday, we have pre-recorded. So I hope you don't mind that this is slightly less live, but we want you to still treat it as live in the comment section. And so we're going to be engaging with you. I don't know, why are you laughing at me?
Slightly less live?
Slightly less live. That term makes sense to
Live,
me.
light.
Live.
Is live like a thing you can have in part?
So anyway, so this is what we're doing. If we can keep it together for this morning, we're going to sort of splice together some of these pieces for our service this morning. This is week 2 of our series that we're calling Meanings and Movies. Meanings in Movies? Meaning, oh my gosh, what is it?
Meaningful movies?
Meaning in Movies. This is week 2 of Meaning in Movies. I don't know why not live is way harder.
It's my favorite.
I don't have the pressure of you all keeping me accountable. Week 2 of Meaning in Movies, where we break down a movie together and we discover some of the beautiful truths and meanings that can come out of it. So we're going to get to that in a minute. But without any more ado than I've already done, I'm going to turn it over to our beautiful musicians. Glad you're with us.
It's been a while since I sat with you without a knot in my chest. Oh, it's been a while since I wanted to. I always felt a little oppressed. Oh, it's been a while. It's been a while since I went ahead and let down my guard, 'cause I carry the weight of the words you said. That makes it just a little bit hard to reject the lies you perpetuate. But you're not the keeper of the pearly gate, and it's been a while, but I'm coming back to fight for my place. A good day to come back home. You sent me away, but I was never alone. You were afraid there was not enough, but you can't run out of love. So I'm here to stay, and I'm sitting in the front row. It's a good day to come out of the shadow. God made me good in every way, so I raise my voice to celebrate a good day. It's been a while since I could admit there is something missing, but I've seen enough to know what love is. Yeah, and what love isn't. I'm not content to fade into the crowd. Let you decide who's in or out. So I'm coming back, 'cause I'm living proof it all belongs without a doubt. A good day to come back home. You sent me away, but I was never alone. You were afraid there was not enough, but you can't run out of love. So I'm here to stay, and I'm standing in the front row. It's a good day to come out of the shadow. God made me good in every way, so I raise my voice to celebrate a good day. Yeah, yeah. It's a good day. We're gonna celebrate. It's a good day. Nothing's gonna keep me out of the light. I'm not gonna hide. I got heart in the right place, covered in the good graces of an endless love. It's a good day. Nothing's gonna keep me out of the light. I'm not gonna hide. I got a heart in the right place, covered in the good graces of an endless love. A good day to come back home. You sent me away, but I was never alone. You were afraid there was not enough, but you can't run out of love. So I'm here to stay, and I'm dancing in the front row. It's a good day to come out of the shadow. God made me good in every way, so I raise my voice to celebrate a good day. Yes, I will celebrate good day. It's a good day. Nothing's gonna keep me out of the light. I'm not gonna hide. I got a heart in the right place, covered in the good graces of an endless love. It's a good day. Nothing's gonna keep me out of the light. I'm not gonna hide. I got a heart in the right place, covered in the good graces of an endless love.
That song made me both happy and a little sad because I missed the front row. Like, that's a nice thing. The front row. I'm like, oh, Colby's dancing.
Especially
in
the
front
dancers
row.
in the front row. We
That's
miss y'all.
nice. We do. We miss you a lot. Hello, people of the future. This is a time capsule in which we welcome you to Sojourn Gray's Partially Live.
What's delightful is that we'll be in the comments live. Like
We will.
Our future selves will be in the comments interacting
Maybe
with
we've
you.
changed our hair. Like,
Who
maybe
knows?
something.
Who knows what the future holds?
Oh my gosh.
I will have changed my hair.
Oh,
Between the
Colby's
music
hair will be
and the
different.
message.
Yep. That's what it, well, anyway, regardless of whether you're here from the past or the future, you've done the thing you need to do to belong here, which is sort of the heart and soul of why we're here and what we do. This place is built around the belief that you belong, that your wholeness has incredible and inalterable value, and that just as you are, whatever you are bringing with you, however you identify, wherever you have been, wherever you've come from, whatever you believe, you belong just because you are, and you are welcome here, and you've done the thing, you've clicked through, and that's all it took. So welcome. Welcome to the past, future, partially live, potentially zombie family. Because I think partially live is zombies, right? That's the
think so.
thing?
I think
Yeah,
that's it.
okay, great. That's great.
All this pain, I wonder if I'll ever find my way. I wonder if my life could really change at all. All this earth, could all that is lost ever be found? Oh, could a garden come up from this ground at all? You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. All around, life is springing up from this old ground, and out of chaos life is being found in you. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. And you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. And you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us.
You make me new. You are making me new. You make me new. You are making me new.
Making me new.
You make me new. You are making me new.
Making me new.
You make me new. You are making me new.
You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. And you make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of the dust. You make beautiful things. You make beautiful things out of us.
So now is the time in our service where we like to invite you to participate in what we call the question of the day. And we know that it's not necessarily live per se. We've already established that, but you can still talk to one another, and we are still going to be in the comment section talking to you. So this is sort of this live moment still. You're with me. So the question, to fit within our theme of our meaning in movies, or whatever the series is called, because clearly I'm struggling with that. The question is, what is the best movie you have seen recently? So sound off in the comments, and we'll be back here in just whenever the countdown is done.
We can't answer this question right now because we don't know what we'll say in the future.
Did it mute the signal? Nothing's muted, so all of our mics are still hot. Cool. Well, didn't see that coming. So you can mute it manually or manually.
Doing some weird stuff.
The snow glows white on the mountain tonight, not a footprint to be seen. A kingdom of isolation, and it looks like I'm the queen. The wind is howling like this swirling storm inside. Couldn't keep it in, heaven knows I've tried. Don't let them in, don't let them see. Be the good girl you always have to be. Conceal, don't feel, don't let them know. Well, now they know. Let it go, let it go. Can't hold it back anymore. Let it go, let it go. Turn away and slam the door. I don't care what they're going to say. Let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered me anyway. some distance makes everything seem small, and the fears that once controlled you can't get to me at all. It's time to see what I can do to test the limits and break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I'm free. Let it go, let it go. I am one with the wind and sky. Let it go, let it go. You'll never see me cry. Here I stand, and here I'll stay. Let the storm rage on. My power flurries through the air into the ground. My soul is spiraling in frozen fractals all around. And one thought crystallizes like an icy blast. I'm never going back. The past is in the past. Let it go, let it go. I'll rise like the break of dawn. Let it go, let it go. That perfect girl is gone. Here I stand in the light of day. Let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered me anyway.
Snaps for Karen for singing an Idina Menzel song, y'all.
This is zombie church, people.
Good morning, everyone. I love and miss you all. I'm going to read a poem to you that I wrote for the Sojo Journal. It's called Emergence. The days drift achingly slow, anxious and void of any presence, alive in the loss of old routine, unable to touch, to breathe your air, to feel the pressure of any embrace. We gather virtually in our sanctuary, raising my voice in song and wanting the blending of yours, soundlessly conversing on the screen. Absent and present, we worship. We meet 6 feet apart, cotton mask, feeling the visceral pull to run into the physical, arms grasping, heartbeat seeking, embrace, breath in my hair, contentment. Looking for a new way to connect, we kick and tear at the borders of isolation and separation, fearful and wondering at the length and changes of social distance. Enveloped in a chrysalis, wrapped in a personal hug, emergence from self-reliance on the wings of faith and hope to join with our evolving community. Thank you.
Every inch of me is trembling, not from the cold. Something is familiar, like a dream I can reach but not quite hold. I can sense you there, like a friend I've always known. I'm arriving, it feels like I am home. I have always been a fortress, cold secrets deep inside. You have secrets too, but you don't have to hide. Show yourself, I'm dying to meet you. Show yourself, it's your turn. Are you the one I've been looking for all of my life? Show yourself, I'm ready to learn. I've never felt so certain. All my life I've been torn, but I'm here for a reason. Could it be the reason I was born? I have always been so
Yes.
So last week we introduced a new series called Meaning in Movies.
I don't know why I'm laughing.
I don't know why you're laughing either. It's
We're
weird.
recording in
It's
our living-
awkward.
maybe
We're
that's
sitting
why.
in our living room where we normally watch shows with our family, in front of our TV, and having to just try to. It's been so fun to do live services with you all where I'm still looking at the camera. I mean, at the screen. It's been so fun to
that's
do.
funny.
Isn't it funny? Right after we had that little tiff, and then I'm like,
Anyway.
there's a screen to the right of y'all, and I keep looking at it instead of. It's ridiculous. Anyway,
We're killing it.
We
I
are.
think at this point in the partially live, I was already like messed up so many times. I'm like, this is harder.
it's
Why
way
is this
harder.
harder?
Well, that's what I was going to explain. So we've loved doing live services with you all. It gives an energy. As leaders, it's really hard to just sit in a room by ourselves and talk to a camera. But knowing that you're out there in the comments and watching live with us is helpful. And right now, with these 2 pre-recorded services we're doing, it's like I'm sitting in my living room. I'm talking to no one. I have to remember that you're still out there, just not yet. Oh, it's weird. Anyway, so here we are. Last week, we announced our series, Meaning in Movies. We're just going to watch movies together, and we are going to talk about spiritual growth and personal growth and health and wholeness, our mission, through the lens of these movies. So this week, hopefully you had a chance to rewatch or watch the first time, Frozen 2. Frozen 2. And we have
Real
some
quick,
guiding.
did you like it better, worse, or the same as the first one?
Better.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think I'll address. Or the reasons why I liked it better. Crap, what was I going to say? Oh, we created some questions just to help guide this whole what's spiritual growth and personal growth in movies. So let's just jump right into Frozen 2.
Let's jump right in.
First,
we got stuff.
Yeah,
to,
first
to
question
say.
that we created.
Question number 1.
We laughed about it, how it can be triggering in our little Sojo community where we, try to do this balance of old Christianity themes, but making sure they're more just and loving. And sometimes language can be really funny, right? So we just live into the awkwardness of it. One of our questions is, where did you see Christ in the film? But, and I do mean but this time instead of and.
Oh.
I always correct myself, but
Mark
sometimes
this.
a good
That doesn't
but
happen very
is
often.
needed. But when I'm asking where did we see Christ, I am pointing to, it's funny, I always give Richard Rohr credit for Universal Christ because he's doing a lot of teaching on this idea lately, but actually all he's doing is taking very ancient teachings. He's looking to the mystics and people who have been talking about this idea for centuries, and he's just kind of repackaging it for evangelical Christians, for Catholics, to kind of say, whoa, hold on, Jesus Christ is not one thing. Christ is one thing and Jesus is one thing. And so that Christ, that universal Christ idea is, Rohr says it's actually another name for everything, which I love. I have this quote that actually I'm going to share right now that I felt was very Frozen 2-y.
Oh, sweet.
By Jackie Lewis, my favorite teacher
Sweetheart,
and preacher
Jackie.
in the world. So she says about the universal Christ, and there's language in here that is exactly what I'm talking about that makes us all go, because we're coming from an evangelical lens. So I encourage you to take that lens off for a moment, just like you can even physically, sometimes I do that for myself because I'm a very physical being, and you can just be like, okay, taking that lens off. Those glasses off. This is not evangelical Christianity. This is the mystics. This is ancient humans for all of time, having nothing to do with Christianity even, pointing to this thing in life, this universal thing. So Jackie says this, what if every human being is anointed, messiahed? What if every human being is Christ? What if the most fundamental aspect of our identity is that we are each anointed and appointed by the Holy One, by Spirit, to preach good news to the poor, liberty to the captive, sight to the blind? What if we take seriously being the body of Christ, that we are actually the hands and the feet and the heartbeat of a living God? What if we are Word made flesh? We are Word made flesh, love made flesh, light made flesh. So that to me is what we're talking about. We're talking about Christ, love made flesh, that we are all the incarnation. And so in Frozen 2, where I saw this, can all be summed up in a quote at the very beginning by Elsa. So Queen Elsa is at the very beginning of the movie. She starts to hear this voice, and it's your first time in the movie where you kind of go, okay, what's going on? What's the plot going to be? She starts hearing this voice out there that's kind of calling to her. And she tells Anna about it, or Anna finds out about it. She says, Anna, I know it sounds crazy, but I believe the voice that is calling me is good. And to me, that is where I see this idea of us all being love made flesh. It's this dance we have in life of hearing something out there and thinking that that's God and being on this journey. And not to jump all the way to the end of the movie, because we'll get into this more, but Elsa realizes that that voice calling from out is actually in. And that's the Christ journey for me, of looking for God out, and then your full circle journey of looking for God in. And then especially that, like, I know it sounds crazy, but I believe it's good. And it's like, the Christ to me is, even though like all evidence might point to the contrary, our inherent being is good.
I love that.
That's where I saw that in Frozen 2.
I love that. Thanks for sharing. So for me, where I saw Christ in Frozen 2, when I thought about the question and watching it, I immediately started thinking about the Christ pattern of life, death, resurrection, this sort of cycle of birth, death, rebirth. And at the very beginning, the opening, or not the opening, but I think it's the first song of the movie, the song All Is Found, about the river out to Holland. It ends with the lyric, when all is lost, then all is found. When all is lost, I tried to sing it, then all is found. I don't know if that's the right tune. Sorry. Much apologies.
I don't know. You know me, I never know what the right tune is.
And of course, then you fast forward in the movie and you see that happen as Queen Elsa descends further and further into the heart of Atahallan, eventually descending all the way into death, really. And once she's in the deepest depth of that part, that's when she learns the truth about how her ancestors tricked the Northuldran people. And so I was thinking about that as the Christ pattern, that sometimes we hold on so much to what we've always known, or we hold on so tightly to what we've always been told is true. We hold on so tightly, afraid to let it go, afraid to let go of it. And we want the second part of that lyric. We want the all is found part. So the lyric, to remind you, is when all is lost, then all is found. We want the all is found part without having to endure the first half, the losing, the all is lost part. And so for me, I saw Christ in that pattern of sort of that willingness to lose everything, to descend all the way in so that you can find life, Jesus said, I assure you that unless a grain of wheat falls to the earth and dies, then it can only be a single seed. It's just a single seed. But if it dies, then it bears much fruit. And he said, those who love their lives, those who try to hold on to them will lose them. But those who hate their lives, which is pretty strong language, but those who are willing to descend all the way to consider their own life of no consequence to the point where they're willing to descend all the way in, then they will find their life and keep it forever. So that was how I saw the Christ pattern.
I love that, obviously. I love that death, life, garden metaphor cycle. Christ stuff. That's awesome. We didn't talk about any of this ahead of time, so we each just had our own thoughts and we're just in real time sharing them. So I love hearing what your different experience of seeing it was, and that we both had what is very much those definitions, but different ways of seeing it. That's cool.
Speaking of what we think, would you, like, all along, we want you to participate in this.
Please.
So I know that these are just partially live, but there's going to be people that are here. We're all engaged. We're still sort of watching it live. So where did you find Christ in this movie? We'd love to hear from you as well, and feel free to interact with each other. All right. Should we move on to question 2?
Yeah. So question 2, let's do I kind of did the Richard Rohr splitting apart the Jesus and the Christ. They're separate things and the same, of course, because part of Christ is that everything is the same, everything. But then there's the person of Jesus. And at Sojourn, we still like to talk about Jesus because we still believe that there's good in our old tradition, and even that it's important to subvert what was hijacked in evangelical Christianity. So we still love and look to Jesus. And so when I say finding Jesus in these movies, all I'm talking about is this justice lens, this speaking truth to power, flipping tables, speaking as the marginalized and for the marginalized. Where I saw that so clearly play out in Frozen 2 was that Elsa and Anna are forced to, actually not forced to, they have to make a choice. But the story forces them to at least look at, and then they have to make choices to face their ignorant complicity in an unjust system. They must face the truth of their past. They must learn that their grandfather was the unjust empire who upheld supremacy and betrayed friendship and the other in the name of supremacy. At one point, Anna says Arendelle, which is their kingdom that they've lived in and ruled over and benefited from and find all of their identity in. Arendelle, their kingdom, she says, will never be healed until we make this right. And this being the evils of their own families past, their ancestors, handed them a legacy of injustice. And they have to face that, which just feels so relevant to our lives today. And then the way they must do that is they must destroy this dam. So for them, it's like this physical piece of property that they must destroy. And the dam has their whole lives protected them, given them power, and been much benefit to them. And they must destroy that which benefited them for the sake of all. So that's where I saw that story play out in Frozen 2.
That's brilliant. Question 2, Kate. I'm really curious. Again, we didn't talk about this beforehand with each other, so let's talk about what Enneagram numbers we think the main characters are.
Fun.
Maybe we should have established who the main characters are, but I think they're...
Well, it doesn't matter.
4,
You can share whatever you want to share about whatever characters you want to share about.
Okay. And we will pause between each one to see what your guesses are as well. Not that there's the right answers. I guess pausing doesn't really matter. But let's just start with the sisters.
Elsa and Anna.
Elsa and Anna. Elsa e Anna. What do you think?
You want me to share?
What do you think Anna is?
Anna for me is a very clear 7.
7. Okay, that's what I had too.
She is just classic. You literally explicitly hear her say things like looking for the silver lining, or she will flip a script of something really tragic or scary or dark that's happening, and she will speak over it, this positivity lens. It's just such a 7 way. She's always looking for the bright side. She'll even say that, and the next adventure. So she's not sometimes people misunderstand 7s that they're just always about avoiding, but they're not. They're actually the exact opposite. They're seeking everything. Their whole thing is they don't want to miss out. So they are jumping in, but they're jumping in with this, it's all good,
yeah, that's good. I love
energy.
That. I love that. Yeah, she strikes me as massive 7 energy.
You do?
Yeah,
You thought that too?
Just so much. Just that sense of, I'm going to talk about it here in a further question, but the song with Olaf about, some things
never change.
Some things never change. Yeah. Just the sense that where Olaf's like, don't you ever worry about how life is just fading away? And she's like, no. Why would I think about that sort of stuff?
Olaf is saying, don't you ever worry about, and then he names every deep
Olaf,
dark.
What number do you think Olaf is?
If I had to give Olaf, which is funny, right? An animated snowman. But if I had to give Olaf an Enneagram number, oh my God, I have so many thoughts about this. But I would actually say he's a 4.
Yeah.
And I have to say with that, you would agree?
Yeah, that's what I would type him as.
Because Olaf's whole thing is this constant questioning of what is the meaning of life, this existential crisis. Yeah. But Olaf is also that goofy, fun, silly light. And that's what I loved about watching that play out, because I think there's another 4 in Frozen 2, another character who's a 4. And so seeing 2 characters that I believe have very 4 energy, but they play out differently, is what people misunderstand about the Enneagram all the time. You get a bunch of Enneagram 4s in a room, and they're all going to be very different humans. You get a bunch of 7s in the room, they're all going to be very different humans. So I loved seeing that Olaf is existential crisis. Who am I? What is life? In that 4E
not bothered by the darkness at all. Not in the not afraid way of Anna?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I have struggles sometimes with remembering which one's Elsa, which one's Anna. But in the it's normal for Olaf to talk about the darkness and the deep.
Yeah, which is just such a 4 thing.
So then, what about Kristoff? I would type Kristoff as a 2, someone who is very much driven by and excited to help meet the needs of others. Like he just loves to be needed. He loves to help. He just has that in his. So that I type him as a 2. What about you?
I didn't type him, but I can totally see that. I completely agree. And not just helping, because totally 2s are helpers, but I'm all about the like not pegging numbers.
Yeah, going past the
Let's go
initial
a little bit
stereotype.
deeper.
Yeah.
2's main drive is relationship. They're just all about relationship.
Oh, good.
And
Yeah,
that's totally Kristoff.
Yep.
Yeah. So the other 4, I think, in Frozen 2 is Elsa. So when I first started thinking about the Enneagram in Frozen characters, I thought she's either a 1 or a 4. And you could still go either way with it. And people would probably right off the bat be like, 4s and 1s, what? They're so different. How could you think she could be either one? But actually 4s and 1s are so related, so similar. Not only in that they have each other's health patterns, right? Growth and health. I'm a 4 myself, and I go to 1 in health, and then 1s go to 4 in health. And so they're related in that. But then beyond that, the 4 and the 1, more than any other Enneagram types, have the worst inner critics. And that is Elsa's whole journey, is her inner critic. The 4s and the 1s have the worst inner critic. That inner voice that is just tormenting, that they live, both those numbers, ask any 4, ask any 1, they live in constant torment around who am I and am I good? And it looks differently for the 4 and the 1, but the inner critic is just hardcore. The reason I go 4 with Elsa is because that first Into the Unknown song, you see this twisted, dark delight smile on her face as she's going into like this existential darkness. She's just comfortable there. So anyway,
I struggled to type Elsa.
You did?
I did.
Yeah.
I probably would have landed on a 9. I see in her this desire to not have the people in her life suffer, to not have like that sort of trying to hold all the things together so that people don't experience suffering. But then when you said 1, I'm like, I guess I can be more talked into 1 with her. But I felt like she was not as clear, definitely not as clear to me as Anna, Olaf, and Kristoff.
What do y'all think? Curious, very curious. Next question?
Yep. All right, question number 3. Kate, I'm going to throw this to you. Would you share with us how you saw yourself or how you saw your own story kind of reflected back or played out in Frozen Dose?
Yeah. So when the first Frozen movie came out, I was just absolutely wrecked by it. And it's just because, and then same with Frozen 2, it's just the same thing played out the second movie of just, it's just all about Elsa for me, Queen Elsa. Her whole thing is this fear of her own power, this raging, all-consuming fear of her own power, terrified that she is going to harm the people that she loves, wrecked by regret from the way that she has indeed harmed people that she loves with her power. That is just...
You can relate?
That, yeah. Yes, it just feels like I just want to hug Elsa. That's how I feel. Yeah. For me, it feels like the story of a strong woman, powerful, a more dominant personality, just that got that twisted, dark leadership, loud, assertive quality, and is born into a world that can't hold that.
Yeah.
That can't hold space for that. It's terrified of it. And then she internalizes, which is a 4 thing, introspection. She internalizes that message and lives it. The message out there in the world that we can't hold your power. She internalizes it and lives it. That could be me totally just projecting and reading my own story into Elsa. I don't know if she's actually like that. That's what I see.
I think that's part of the. I think
That's right,
that's allowed. That's
Yep, that's the meaning
game here. That's the
in.
meaning in. The
No one
small
can argue
meaning,
with it. Yeah.
What are you able to share or access? What helped you kind of unlock some of that, or maybe not unlock, but find integration with that, find a comfort with that, find an acceptance with that?
Well, I haven't yet. That's an ongoing story. I think it all matches Elsa's story, which I think we'll get to when we talk about the truth about transformation and growth. So I'll share that then.
Okay.
But the truth is, I just haven't yet. I'm still not comfortable in my skin in that way at all. So.
Okay.
To be honest,
so
TBH.
Here's how I'll start my response to that question. I'll start with a hot take. Ready for this hot take?
Probably not.
Is Kristoff in a codependent relationship with Anna? Is he a classic codependent? As he sings, "Who am I if I'm not your guy? Where am I if we're not together forever?" Maybe. I don't know. I'll let you guys decide if you think he needs to go to Codependent Anonymous. But I remember, okay, so here's where I saw myself reflected in the story. I remember a number of years ago when you and I were really sort of beginning to dig up, for, in many ways, the first time, dig up some of the old patterns and stories of our life and sort of the history that we hadn't really engaged with much. And you yourself are doing a lot of like personal work, discovering so much about yourself, discovering and really accessing yourself apart from me, apart from the we.
Yep.
And it was terrifying to me.
Yep.
I almost said, do you remember
I'll vouch
this?
for
But
that.
clearly she remembers this. It was terrifying for me. I remember being totally freaked out that you were experiencing all this amazing life outside of our dynamic. And it was just this sense of it just felt really vulnerable and threatening to me. So when I hear a song like Lost in the Woods, when I hear it now in my life, for me, I hear it and it's like, yeah, you know what? There's a version of that. There's a variation of that song, of that story, of that narrative that I think is really unhealthy. That's sort of overly dependent upon like, who am I without you? Or I need you in my life forever. Like there's a version of that I think is unhealthy. But then I think there on the other side of that, so like on the other side of doing that differentiation work, that sort of separation, that de-enmeshment, is that a word? Of finding who you are and who I am. Like then you have the same words. Like I think at the end of the song he says, "Now I know you're my true north, and I'm lost when you're not there." Like now I think there's a version of that that's really beautiful, where you recognize that another person is the person for you. And this is, you know, in so many ways, one of the big roles you play in my life. You're the person that really is my true north. Like you help me know myself better. You reflect back to me who I am. You help me sort of get out of my head and into my feeling space. Like I really am in some ways lost without you. But I think that maybe is a better version now than it would have been 7-8 years ago. Where again, it's the same words, it's the same song, but it has this sort of this different.
That's
this
a paradoxical idea, right? That I can't live without you. You're my true north. There's really unhealthy version and a healthy version. I love that. We've talked about that a lot. That whole needing is needing people inherently bad, or is it just paradoxical? I think we've landed on paradoxical. Yeah. Cool. What's the next question?
Question number 4. Kate, as you watched Frozen 2, what truths about transformation, about growth, what truths about transformation did you notice? What stood out to you?
Well, back at Elsa, just because I do see myself in her so much. So you were asking me earlier when I was talking about her fear of her power and her personality and all of that. So Elsa's whole transformation is about having this fear of herself, this fear of her inherent power, and fear of doing harm to others. And in the end, she's able to say to herself, "You are the answer I've been waiting for all my life." The you being herself. So she's her own answer that she's been waiting for her whole life. And for me, that's universal spiritual truth in growth and transformation, in personal growth and transformation, is that we are always our own answer. Nobody else is ever going to do the work for you. No one else is ever going to be your hero. No one else is ever going to be your answer. And no one else's story is going to perfectly fit you. Oh my God, our kitten is going crazy.
Yeah, you hear
I might
that?
go get
Our
him
new
here in a
kitten
second.
is trapped in a bedroom.
I'll go get him
because
and show
otherwise
you in a
he would be
second.
dancing everywhere. And
While you answer this, I'm going to grab him really
now
quick.
he's like, get me out of here.
But anyway, and then in that being your own answer is also that your shadow side and your strength are just always the same exact thing. It's just two sides to the same coin. So yeah, Elsa's power does have the ability to harm people she loves. And yes, she does have in her story hurting her sister with her power. Absolutely. And she has to not do that dualistic thing where you're like, oh, so that part of me is bad. And true health and growth is to walk away from that part of me. That's not the answer to growth and transformation. The answer is in the problem. It's the both andness of your power. Your shadow is not a bad thing. It's just a shadow. And I don't know. I'm rambling because my cat is distracting me.
Pause. Oh no, you
No,
wanted me
you
to keep
just
going.
share your. Where do you see transformation?
Well, I'm
and
good.
growth?
This is fun. I'm going to go back to a point that Kate made in one of the earlier questions, and
I kicked the light. Now we have to fix it. Gilbert, say hi, everybody. He was whining because we were trying to keep him out of this because he's crazy and he will.
Welcome to Sojo, Gil. Just don't go on the couch because then you're going to bump the entire camera tripod. It's going to be...
I'm going to take him up to the kids.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. We're just finding lots of reasons for you have to do more editing work.
All right. Light's good. Cat's good. And action. I'm going to go back to a point you made earlier when I talk about transformation. The thought that came up for me is that sometimes that real change, real growth cannot actually be attained unless previous wrongs are put to rights. I think sometimes real change can't be attained until previous wrongs are put to rights. Now, this isn't always possible. Sometimes, yes, we have to find a way to grow and transform without ever receiving any sort of putting the wrongs to right. So sometimes that's just not possible. But sometimes it is possible, and sometimes it's arguably necessary in order to have the transformation and growth. You have to be able to turn around in sort of history, and whether this is your own individual or, like you said earlier, collectively as a larger group of people or country, what wrongs have not been put to right? Because there might be a type of transformation and growth that can never be fully ascertained until that has been accomplished. And I have the same quote that you did. Anna says to Matthias, Arundel has no future. Anna says to Matthias, Arundel has no future until we make this right. Arundel, there's no future if we have to make this right. And I was reminded when I was thinking about this, about the teaching from Jesus, where he said, if you go to the altar to present an offering to God, but then, quote, remember that your brother or sister has something against you. I thought that's a really interesting way to phrase that. Not remember that you did wrong to somebody, but remember that your brother or sister or sibling has something against you. Leave your gift at the altar. Stop right there. Don't present your offering. And go, Jesus says. First, make things right with them, and then come back and offer your gift. Almost as if to say, if you want to have any sort of path of connection to the divine, it goes through the process of making things right with people that you have wronged. But you have to do that piece first. So for me, there's a real cost to transformation. There's a real cost to growth. And sometimes that cost is to go back in time and make amends for damage you've caused. Now, that's what stood out to me about transformation and growth. But can I share a sort of counter, or at least another piece of this perspective? That was rhetorical. You're looking at me like,
I'm like, what?
I just wanted you to be like, yeah, share. So this comes from...
You wanted affirmation?
No, I just wanted interaction. And always affirmation. So
I just gave you confusion.
One of my friends who is active in the BIPOC work and whose intuitions and insights, they often challenge me when I read what she has to say in her insights. I remember back when Frozen 2 came out, I remember seeing one of her reflections on it because she'd finally seen it. And she criticized the movie she said, for the movie walking right up to the line of being brave, but ultimately capitulating to the status quo. And then she said, portraying a narrative where Indigenous people are completely screwed over, but then you still get to be the hero at the end for being willing to give up something while not actually having to. She said that's a white fantasy, which is to say that Arendelle ultimately didn't pay any price. There was no cost that they were given. They were saved in the end. And so for her, it was just...
And still held all the power. Here, Anna, you be queen.
Yeah, for her, it was like, wait, so what really did they get? What cost was given? So I read that and I'm like, oh no, that feels real to me. I don't know. I think it all belongs. Somehow it all belongs. Because my mind then goes to the ancient story of Abraham, who was told by the divine to sacrifice his son, and he's ready to sacrifice. He's ready to give up everything. And at the last minute, the divine says, no, like, don't actually do it. And part of that story is to the ancient Jews to show, look, gods don't want us to sacrifice humans, people. But there's a sense in which, like, is it just a willingness to give it all, or do you actually have to give it all? Does there actually have to be a cost paid? So I don't know. There's I can see how both of those feel true to me. They both feel true to me, which is that, yes, obviously Anna was ready to sacrifice, and in her mind did pay that sacrifice to try and right the wrongs done. It's just that in the end they didn't actually have to pay anything. So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It all belongs. Yeah, that all makes a ton of sense. I see it. In fact, when I shared earlier about the justice piece with Anna and Elsa needing to destroy the dam, that I just didn't want to share too long myself, but that was one of my thoughts was, but then Anna's still queen, and Arendelle was actually saved, and a lot of weird white savior stuff in there, and just kept spinning out into all the ways you could go with that. So I agree. Yep. A lot there. Question 5. What unhealthy and unhelpful stereotypes and narratives were exposed or perpetuated?
Let me go first.
Sure.
All right. So I loved in the first film how they exposed this narrative of being saved by true love's kiss, and how it wasn't the guy saving Anna, but it was the love of the sister. So I loved that. And then for this film, one of my favorite lines was when towards the end, when Kristoff came charging in on top of Sven and scooped up Anna, who was being chased by the rock giants, and he said to her, "Don't worry, I'm here. Everything is going to be all right now." That's not what he said. That's the narrative that we are sort of expecting, is that the guy sort of swoops in and saves everything and everybody then feels good. But it's not what he said. He said, "I'm here. What do you need? What do you need?" And I loved it. It up into that whole narrative of boy saves girl, and instead has boy showing up to support girl, just saying, "What do you need? How can I help you accomplish what you are trying to do in this moment?" So I loved that. I thought that was a great reversal of that old narrative.
Yeah, which I feel like is obviously imperfectly, as we've named, and not all there, but I feel like a lot of what Frozen franchise has done is take all of those unhealthy, unhelpful narratives and expose them and flipped them and addressed them intentionally and explicitly. I want to point to an area where they did not do that, have not done that, and should. So this is the perpetuating the unhealthy, which is in women's bodies. I cannot freaking stand any more of this toothpick waste animated women's bodies. It is driving me insane. Here's my waist. So annoying. So annoying. Like, why? Yeah, why?
Why not just draw them?
Anything, just anything different. Oh my God. I don't even have words for it. It's so distracting for me as a woman watching, like, yay, female protagonist, yay, female saving the day in their dress and high heels and stick straight, tiny little body. Drives me nuts.
Come on, Disney. All right, last question. Let's do the easiest one at the end. How did this movie illuminate the meaning of life? So this goes back to last week. We talked about the big cosmic meaning, the sort of meaning of things. So Kate, for you, what was a piece of the meaning of life that was brought to the surface or illuminated by Frozen 2?
Sure. I mean, I feel like anytime we talk about meaning of life, everything instantly gets very cliche and just cliche. But nonetheless, cliche is cliche for a reason. I just feel like the meaning of life is love, and that watching that play out in a way where we realize that love is not easy, love is not frou-frou and like happy rainbows, cotton candy, yay. That love is painful and work and hard, and it's the work of transformation and growth. And I felt like that was best illuminated by Kristoff's line when Anna apologizes to him. And he says, "No, it's all good. My love is not fragile." That for me, it's a really good line. And I feel like it did a lot of things. And one of them was illuminate that meaning of lifeness, of that love is everything and it is not fragile. And I could give a whole sermon about the difference between sensitivity and fragility. And for me, Kristoff is a perfect, actually an imperfect character that illuminates for us a very sensitive human being. Naming him as an Enneagram 2 is very helpful. Relational, all about love and relationship, very sensitive, sees things 20,000 layers deep, as our sweet twos do. That's sensitivity. And then he's like, oh, but it's not fragile. Like, I'm here, minute.
Cat.
Our other cat is going to ruin this whole thing.
It's bigger.
Get down.
Scarier to grab.
She will eat us. Okay.
I loved that. Was that it? Or
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
What
For
came
me, it
up
was very
for
simple.
me on the meaning of life was maybe less meaning of life and more like reality in life, which is this idea of impermanence, which is a beautiful theme that shows up in this movie. The idea that everything is passing away, that everything changes and evolves, that nothing lasts. And I referenced it earlier, but Olaf was trying to reflect on this, as fours are wont to do, and asked Anna if she's ever bothered by it. And she said, no, not really, because
Sweet
I have
seven.
the people in my life whom I love. And she listed off a few people that she loves. So she's like, I'm all good. Little did she know that just 60 minutes later, two of them would be gone or dead. She'd lose her sister and her snowman, and then she'd be entirely separated from Kristoff. And for me, this is just the way that this film deals with impermanence, the reality of it, and then maybe how we engage with it, how we respond to it. I loved the song "Some Things Never Change." I loved the irony of the moment when Anna's listing off things that are going to stick around forever, and Olaf's hopping along a stone wall right as Anna sings, "Like an old stone wall that will never fall. Some things are always true." And right as she says that, at the exact moment Olaf lands on a stone that then crumbles off the wall, as if to say, you think these things will last forever, but they don't. They won't. They can't. So that was a great editing moment. I love that. And later on in the song, they sing, "We'll always live in the kingdom of plenty that stands for the good of the many. I promise you the flag of Arendelle will always fly." And of course, when you watch this on a repeat viewing, you know that none of that is true. Like, they're about to enter a moment where they're not going to be the kingdom of plenty. You enter a moment where they have to reckon with the fact that they haven't stood for the good of the many historically, and the flag won't always fly. So I love all these foreshadowing of how the movie just sort of presents this, look, these things will always be here, followed by, no, they won't always be here. And this is what life is, this painful, or it can be painful, reality of impermanence. And so for me, the meaning the way to respond to this is just to cherish the moment, to cherish what you do have, to be grateful for what there is, because it could honestly just disappear at any moment. It could be taken away. Nothing is guaranteed to last. And so that really shone for me in watching this idea of impermanence and then sort of how we engage and reflect with it.
Love it.
So that's it. That's our 6 questions. That's our first attempt at doing a meaning in movies series. Thank you for tuning in as we sort of experiment with this pre-record, editing all the pieces together and playing it later.
Hopefully you're interacting in the comments.
Yeah,
and we'll see you there in the future.
So for next week, we're doing the movie Onward, the Disney Pixar movie Onward. Put it in O for Onward. So hopefully you will watch that if you haven't, or rewatch it if you have the chance. Fantastic movie, and we'll be back here in 7 days to discuss the meaning in Onward.
You call me out upon the waters, the great unknown, where feet may fail. And there I find you in the mystery, in oceans deep, my faith will stand. I will call upon your name and keep my eyes above the waves. When oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine. Your grace abounds in deepest waters. Your gentle hand will be my guide. Where feet may fail and fear surrounds me, you never fail, and you won't start now. I will call upon your name, keep my eyes above the waves. Oceans rise, my soul will rest in your embrace. For I am yours, and you are mine. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters, wherever you would call me. And take me deeper than my feet could ever wander, and my faith will be made stronger in my journey through the darkness. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters, wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. My faith will be made stronger in my journey through the darkness. Spirit, lead me where my trust is without borders. Let me walk upon the waters, wherever you would call me. Take me deeper than my feet could ever wander. My faith will be made stronger in my journey through the darkness. I will call upon your name, keep my eyes above the waves. I am yours. You are mine. I am yours. And you are mine. Bless you.
I was
holding that for a long time.
How do you? I can't even hold a sneeze at all, so I'm impressed.
A little camera focus. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Yeah, Ben, I don't know. I'll decide if I keep that in or not. I guess since we're not live, or since we're partial live. That song we have done many times at Sojourn in our years, but the band did some rewriting of the lyrics. So see if you can go through and find out what some of the new exciting rewrites were. What are you guys doing back there?
We're just coming close.
Okay,
Otherwise, we're out of focus.
that's
So we're
true.
partially you.
That's true. That's wonderful. Okay, it is now time for the first time they've been seeing you today, by the way, babe. Do you want to say hi to the people?
Well, no, it won't because you'll have put me in.
That's embarrassing. We have a benediction and we say it every
Partially live is hard.
Partially life is hard. I'm telling you.
This is weird, you guys. It's a Friday and we're here and we don't know what to do. We're usually out there.
We love you, though.
But you are now, but you're not right now.
Did you unmute?
But you will
Can
be
people
then
hear you?
now. Yes.
Okay.
That'd be funny if I didn't know, and all of that was just
Yeah.
my mouth moving.
My mouth movings.
You guys, everything is weird in life right now, right? I feel like all of our weirdness right now is just this picture of the world.
Yeah. You're looking at the iPad. You should look up at the camera.
Oh, me too.
I liked it.
My eyes.
We have,
Zombie. It's to fit the zombie.
we have a new preview monitor on here so we can see ourselves. I don't know if it's a good idea though.
Okay, we should do a benediction.
Anybody?
Brave.
Because you're a child of God.
Be kind.
Because so is everyone else.
Happy zombie.
Thanks for tuning in. Partially live. I love you. Bye-bye.